Welcome to Wall Street Week, the show of record for long-term investing. I'm Anthony Scaramucci.
And I'm Gary Kaminsky. A crucial jobs report just 4 days before the election. It showed that the U.S. added only 161,000 jobs, while the unemployment rate dropped slightly to 4.9%.
Meanwhile, most of the polls say the economy is the top concern for voters, and Donald Trump is the best candidate to improve America's economic growth. Hillary Clinton tops him in categories like foreign policy. We welcome to Wall Street Week W.L. Ross and Company founder and billionaire investor Wilbur Ross. Wilbur, you're supporting Donald Trump, but I think it's largely for economic reasons. Could you explain to us why?
Yeah, I think we need a change. The 161,000 jobs was anemic enough, was actually down from 190,000 the month before. But worse yet, all jobs are not created equal. 18.2% of these are total jobs are part-time. The part-time jobs went up 90,000. Full-time jobs went down 109,000. That's not a very healthy economy. And while the media may say this is fine, the guy who's stuck in a part-time job doesn't think so. And the other reason jobs are not created equal, a lot of these were in health care and in retail. Those are not very high-paying jobs, and the retail ones are probably just temporary.
Well, what kind of things could a new administration do to change that mix of jobs and the quality of them and improve the wage mix for the American worker?
Well, it could do a lot of things. First of all, we have a huge trade balance problem. And one of the few good things about the recent GDP report was that our exports went up. Unfortunately, the main reason they went up was a very big sale of soybeans. Now, I have nothing against soybeans, but it shows how feeble we are when the key indicator of our booming exports is soybeans and not manufactured goods. So we have to bring jobs back. We have to bring back high-paying manufacturing jobs. Now, the only real way to do that I can see is two things. One, fix the balance of trade. Two is Trump's infrastructure program. As you know, we've put forward a $1 trillion privately financed program where the equity investors in infrastructure would get an 82% tax credit, and that would be recouped by the taxes on wages and contractor profits. So the government would get $1 trillion infrastructure for free.
Well, but let's turn to the markets. Mainstream media has been saying that the markets have been down since last week because the likelihood of a Trump victory is that much greater. So a couple of questions here. First of all, what do you expect happens to the markets if a Trump victory happens? And then the second thing is, one of the concerns I heard throughout the street this past week was what happens, and there's a good likelihood that Donald Trump wins the popular vote, maybe by even in excess of 1 million votes, but loses the electoral vote. So walk us through both situations and what you expect happens to assets in those scenarios.
Well, a lot of Wall Street, as you know, has decided for whatever reason to go Democratic. So it's not surprising that some of them would be disappointed, as it looks like Trump might actually win. But think about what a Trump presidency would really mean to the market. Very few companies have their earnings go up 30% in a year. But Trump's lowering of the tax rate from a 35% top rate to 15%, that means there'd be 30% more pre-tax earnings carried through to post-tax. I can't imagine anything that would be better for the market than having just about everybody's earnings importantly enhanced. So I don't see where all the great concern about Trump should be.
And what about, well, what if he wins the popular vote but loses the election? What do you expect is going to happen then in terms of global asset prices?
Well, I think that would be very, very bad, because that would hint at potential civil disorder. It would hint at changes of people believing in the voting system. It would make a big, big mess. and particularly so with Obama and Hillary playing the race card all over the place. Obama ran on a ticket of unifying the country, and he has been the most divisive president that I can remember. So I'm very worried if you have that kind of imbalanced solution. I'm very worried that there will be very, very bad things go on.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I think that that's probably the worst case scenario for the markets. Yes, Anthony.
Well, Wilbur, last week we had Home Depot co-founder Bernie Marcus on the show. I want you to listen to his take on the impact that Washington, D.C. has on our economy.
It seems to be that Washington is working on how to hurt people and how to keep jobs out of America. I don't get it. I mean, I'm a businessman. I've worked for the last 55 years creating jobs. I think that I understand how to create jobs, and the way to create jobs is not the way they're doing it. Hillary is talking about taxation.
What's your take on that, Wilbur?
Well, I think taxation is a very, very big reason why jobs have moved overseas. If we go down from the 35% maximum corporate rate to 15%, we will be extremely competitive with any country. And I think one consequence of that is that a lot of earnings that are now being characterized as non-U.S. will suddenly be recharacterized as being U.S. I think that will be the beginnings of the solution to the problem of how do you bring money back. Second solution is obviously only taxing it at the 10% rate that Donald Trump is talking about for repatriation. But the more important thing, I think, in some ways, is deregulation. The regulatory environment is horrendous for people to deal with. They now have at the point where they're even regulating the kind of charger you can use for your electric toothbrush. I mean, give me a break. With all the serious issues in the country, is this really what people should be focusing on? You had almost 7,000 new rules and regulations created in the last 2 years. Were we really such a wild and woolly, under-regulated country 2 years ago that we needed 7,000 more rules? I can't imagine it.
All right. Well, Wilbur, great insight. Stick around. Wall Street Week. We'll be right back.